Welcome to another episode of The Meeting is Dead, Long Live the Meeting, the podcast dedicated to rescuing you from the soul-crushing abyss of pointless meetings. I'm your host, Barrie, and today it's a great privilege to have Natasha Nass join me on The Meeting is Dead, Long Live the Meeting podcast. Having worked in a previous life with Tash, it's sure to be a fun and interesting conversation. Tash is amongst many descriptors, the CEO and founder of Jane Doe, and I looked up Jane Doe. They describe themselves as a powerhouse creative team with one goal: to find your identity. United by their creativity, driven by their passion, and determined to make a masterpiece of your brand. Tash works with a largely remote team of freelance and work-from-home humans. And so when she recently posted on LinkedIn about how important Jane Doe's weekly virtual meeting is to the team, I wanted to know more. A weekly non-negotiable is how she described their meeting in her post. A critical part of their work rhythm, setting them up for success and allowing them to have the flexibility and the non-micro-managing space they all desire. Welcome, Tash. It's really good to have you and your valuable thoughts and perspectives.
Wow, that was quite the intro, Barrie. Thank you. I can't believe it's been 7 years. Jeepers, time flies.
That's the disadvantage of you having my questions. You know, I'm about to ask you about 7 years, so you jumped ahead of me there.
Sorry.
But quickly catch me up and tell us a little bit about Jane Doe.
So, Jane Doe was a dream I had while I was still in the freelance space. And back then I was in like a really sticky situation. It was quite a toxic situation, actually. So I just had to get out, but I wasn't sure how. Then I happened to bump into Trisha Jones. Just want to give her a shout out because I know she's listening. Hi, Trish. Trish annoyingly has this habit of calling me on my BS. Yeah, she just helped me discover my strengths and at my core, what I really love to do. I mean, I'm a designer by trade. I've been designing, you know, Barrie, we've worked together, and that is what I do love to do. But if you dig a little bit deeper, and Trish went there, I actually love people. I love inspiring people. It was a case of, okay, how do I do that? Because freelancing can get a little bit lonely and a little bit isolated. And I wanted to lean on other people. I wanted a team. I wanted an agency. She just helped me discover that. She just gave me some sage advice. She basically said, Tash, if you're holding onto a rope so tightly because it's all you have at that minute, you don't have any free hands to grab onto what you really want. And surprisingly, she also said that when you step into the universe owns that and rewards you for it. I was pretty skeptical in the beginning, but I took the jump. Just said, I cannot do this anymore. Gave my 2 weeks notice, and I was like, I'm out of there. And I stepped into this world that's just way beyond my wildest imagination.
So tell me, there wasn't a dead body involved in the name, right?
I get that all the time, especially because my car is branded, right? So, it opens up very interesting conversations. But no, I think when I explain what I do, people get it. They're like, oh, Jane Doe, I love it. That's really cool.
What do they get?
Well, they get that you find your identity in your brand. Because I think a lot of brands are floundering in that space. They kind of have this picture of what they want, but what Jane Doe does is we understand what their business does. We strategically approach it in terms of who's their audience, who are their competitors. We kind of dissect all of that, and then we give them this identity that they knew was there, but we make it, we make it visual in how we represent it, and we work with tone of voice as well. Like, what is your tone of voice? Because that's critical for messaging, right? And that's critical for messaging across all touch points. Got to land the message. So I heard the other day that it takes somebody 206 times to hear a message before it actually lands. So if you're saying all sorts of different things, it's never going to land. You've got to be consistent. So that's basically what we do.
Got it. So, right, let's move from Jane Doe and onto today's conversation, because today's conversation is about meetings. You had posted something on LinkedIn. You had written the following. You said, as the majority of our team freelance and work from home, most of us on farms, feels like a conversation for another day, it is an absolute non-negotiable for our team to miss this virtual meetup. This isn't because Jane Doe is some sort of cult that expects utmost devotion. It's because the value we gain from meetings for 30 minutes once a week sets us up for success and allows us to have the flexibility and non-micro-managing space we all desire. The agenda goes up on Friday before the meeting, and the expectation is that we all populate it by Monday morning in time for the 9 a.m. meetup. The meeting starts on time and aims to end by 9:30 at the latest. We're not about meeting for meeting's sake. If a meeting is structured and the objective is clear, this is achievable. So what prompted you to share that post on LinkedIn about your team, meeting, structure?
other than getting my content creators off my back, because they are always going, Tash, you need to create content. We need real content. I've just been seeing a lot on LinkedIn about meetings, and in our Monday meetup, actually, I got this like spark of an idea to actually talk about our Monday meetup because I think they rock. And so does my team. It's actually half an hour that we actually look forward to. And how many meetings can you say that about, right? So yeah, I just dove in and the rest kind of just tumbled out of me. When I actually reread it, I was like, wow, did that just did that just come out of me? But it's because it was the truth. I definitely was authentic in that post. I mean, it obviously resonated with you, Barrie, because you picked it up and here we are.
Yeah, it did, for all of those reasons. You've told us that your team is mostly freelance. They are distributed all over South Africa. You're based in Joburg. So what specific challenges does this present? And more specifically, how do your weekly meetings help you overcome that kind of disconnect or that distribution across the country?
I'm not going to lie, it's tough. It is difficult to stay connected when you're working remotely. While remote work does give us the flexibility to work from anywhere, which I love. I mean, a month back, I took 3 weeks, 3 indulgent weeks in the Eastern Cape, but I was able to do that because of the meeting. However, I just find that there's a lack of connection, a lack of energy, because you can only feel that when you're in a room with somebody, right? So this is why our Monday meetings are non-negotiable for me. My team knows that. They know that they need to show up as their best selves, sometimes not always, but just as themselves, so that we can see each other. I mean, cameras need to be on. That's also non-negotiable. Yeah, just so that we can plan the week ahead, we can touch base. You know, there are all sorts of things that go on in our Monday meetups, and we'll get to that later, I'm assuming. But yeah, it's just really a space I look forward to being in.
All right, so let's dig a little into the structure that you talked about. Firstly, you set a clearly defined agenda, set well ahead of time. How is that crucial, do you think, to the weekly meetings?
Oh, Barrie, I hate the A word.
Which is the A word?
Agenda.
Oh, agenda.
Can we call it like a magic meetup map? I think that has a better ring to it. You know, I'm a creative, Barrie, so I'm very much right brain, but I'm also a box creative, which basically means, I mean, I bulked against it for a long time because I was like, oh, I'm supposed to be, you know, creating and doing all of these things. But I'm very much a left brain person, so I like structure. I do thrive on structure because I feel like it moves us forward and it keeps us, you know, on point. So clearly defined talking points matter because we all come out of the meeting with passion and purpose. And I have yet to be in a Monday meetup where this isn't the case. So yeah, like my PM, hi Renee, she sends the agenda out to the team on a Friday, just so that everybody can be prepared for the meeting, because there's nothing worse than rocking up to a meeting and people aren't prepared and I'm the only one talking. I mean, nobody wants to listen to me for 30 minutes. Hopefully your listeners do. But it's critical that they are part of it. And that takes preparation. I also don't want to blindside people as well and put them on the spot. It's also not productive. So it's important that there is a structure and a flow that we follow. And that doesn't mean that it's not fun. We'll discuss later some of the sections. And it has taken a lot of refining to get to this point. It's not just, hey, here's a structure from ChatGPT, let me go with it. It's taken a lot of refining to understand my team and how they hear things, how they absorb conversation. So yes, I think it's critical that we do have that A word, our magic map. You may think that it's rigid, but actually it sparks creativity if it's done in the right way.
All right, well, you don't like the A word, but you use another A word because one of your segments is called accountability.
That's right. You called me on it.
So why is it important for you guys to openly discuss both your achievements and you call them blockers?
I think it's important that everybody owns their stuff, that they're accountable to what they committed to last week, and we'll get to the goals and objectives section. But what they committed to, they need to have some form of accountability because we're all adults, we're here for a reason, and also we're here to help each other through that blocker. So, for example, I had a blocker because I didn't manage my time properly. And then we kind of go, okay, well, how can you solve that? And the meeting doesn't go off on a tangent because of that question. I mean, if it needs to be taken offline, it needs to be taken offline. So yeah, like I said, every Jane, and that's what we call ourselves. Everybody's got kind of a moniker. I don't call them Jane because I think everybody has their own individual personalities. But yeah, so all the Janes, they're expected to show up and participate. Everybody has a voice in the right place. I obviously drive the meeting from a founder leadership perspective. And I think that's important, that there is somebody that drives it. Otherwise, it's just voices talking over each other. And I think that's another snag about remote working, is you can't always gauge when somebody's talking or when they're finished talking. So there can be a lot of interruption. So yeah, we do have specific categories that stay the same each week. So they know what to expect. They know that this is how it follows. This is the flow. But there's also some fluidity. Is that a word?
Yeah, fluidity.
Yeah, fluidity in the meeting because of what they contribute, what they bring to the table. All of my team members are different. I mean, I wouldn't want it any other way because they bring their special skill set to the table, and that's why they're there. It's not something that, okay, we're going to talk through these talking points. Tasha's going to talk all the time. Yeah, that's why I said it really does spark creativity in that space.
Are there any Johns in your team?
Sorry, Barrie, there aren't any Johns.
Only Jade.
And I get this question often. Why only women? It's not. I don't have anything against men. I am married to a wonderful, wonderful man. Hey, Jade. Yeah, it's just.
Did you just say hey Jay or hey Jane?
Hey Jay. I said Jay. I don't call him Jade. It's nothing against men. It's just I want to have that female culture.
Well, your name has defined you, so you're pretty stuck as messaging goes, right?
No, it has. And if I ever find myself hiring men, it'll be John Doe, right? So watch this space.
Well, let me ask you this, Tash. You call them blockers. Those kinds of things can be tough to talk about, especially in a public forum. So how do you create a safe space, especially when it's remote, so that team members feel safe to talk about their blockers?
The blockers aren't really spoken about in the meeting. We discuss them when we have empathy, when somebody has a blocker, but that I feel is something that needs to be taken offline. It's maybe somebody that is uncomfortable about talking about it, and that's why we have our Jane to Janes. It's a one-to-one basically with me and a team member. We have these quarterly as a check-in, and it's a space for my team members to talk about things that are a little bit uncomfortable that they wouldn't say in a full team meeting. It gives them the space for us to have a discussion, to have open communication, and they absolutely know that it won't affect their position in the agency. Like I said, it's a safe space. So they can come at it with honesty and be met with empathy. And that's where we can kind of discuss some of the things that are tripping them up. And, I think mostly I try and listen because I feel like when people talk, they come up with a solution themselves. But if wanted and asked for, we discuss it and try to come up with a solution together. So that is also something that's critical to that space. If it's a blocker that can't wait for 4 months, I address it personally. I hear what they're saying, and then I say, let's discuss it. Let's discuss it offline.
Okay, so another component you got, and I want to ask how it's different from achievements and blockers, but you call them yays and nays. Tell us a little bit about yays and nays, and then also, if you wouldn't mind, share an example of a success story that emerged from your yays and nays segment.
So it's funny that you ask. As our team has grown, we're now sitting at 8 phenomenal females in our Jane team. It's become harder to stick to the 30-minute time limit, right? So I looked at it and I went, the yays and nays are maybe the fluffy part that I can kind of get rid of, And as we went on each week, I actually noticed something. It was very insightful, actually. The meeting ended up quite flat without the yays and nays. And you might think, okay, well, what is this actually lending to the meeting? But it turns out that it's actually a critical part of the meeting. So we added it back in.
So you haven't told us, what are yays and nays?
Okay,
how are they different from achievements and blockers?
Okay, so yays and nays are more of the personal side of the meeting. So it's basically, for example, your yay would be, I had a really good roast with my family on Sunday, and that, brought me joy. And my nay is, it's flipping cold in Joburg. So it's not something that is related to the work at hand, but it's also something that's human, right? That brings a human element to the meeting, because after all, that's what we are. We're people first. We're not just a number. We're not just this robot that spits out work all the time. We're human, and it doesn't spark further discussion than that. We kind of go, oh, amazing. I'm so glad you had a good time with your family. Or, yeah, it is cold in Joburg. It just created more connection. So I'm glad that it's come back, and we have seen a difference there. And I must tell you, Barrie, that even though we've brought on more people to the team, we still end in 30 minutes. Okay, I lie. 32, but you get the point, right? So that's quite interesting that we're still managing to stick to the time, because I'm super strict with ending on time, because we've got work to do and we have to serve our clients, and that's our priority. So when you're stuck in a meeting that goes on and on and on, kind of like this conversation. Sorry, I'll give you a chance to talk now. But it's important that I value my consultants' time and that they can spend that time working on their skill instead of just, talking or listening.
Tash, the last segment that I want to touch on, or maybe it's two, it's a fun fact and buzzword of the week. How do those segments remain relevant and beneficial rather than just purely fun distractions? First, tell us what are they?
Okay, so the fun fact is basically a space for our team to share something that they found inspiring during the week. So whether that's a podcast, whether that's a book they've read, whether it's a trend they've seen, whether it's another Instagram update, anything that they've kind of seen online and offline in their experience that is relative to our creative space, they bring it to this part of the section. And then we kind of have a little bit of a discussion like, oh, that's so great what, Ogilvy did with this, with the KFC campaign, or have you seen the new pineapple billboards, or what is going on with that red wall? It's a space for us to also stay inspired, because we know on a Monday, Tasha's going to go, okay, cool, what's your fun fact? And it also just encourages my team to get out there in the real world. I think we can get stuck doing the job, and we don't play enough. Barrie, I know you know this. We don't play enough, and we don't get stuck in, what's happening. And it's just, the fun fact is a play section, and it is strategic that it comes at the end because it leaves us all inspired and looking forward to the week. So that's the fun fact.
Okay, and buzzword of the week?
So buzzword of the week, we've actually fleshed it out a little bit. So it's quotes of the week, buzzword of the week, and riddle of the week. And we rotate who does that on a weekly basis. So Renee, my PM, kind of assigns somebody, because if it's just coming from me, it's only my perspective, right? But the whole team has their own perspective to bring to that section. So the buzzword of the week is a word that we've heard in the industry that's, say, for example, quiet hiring or parasocial, or something that isn't the norm, that isn't like ROI or KPI or anything like that. It's something that's quite interesting in our industry that someone's come across. So that's the buzzword of the week. The quote of the week is obviously something that's inspiring. The one that we had last week actually gave me a good giggle. I shared it to all my WhatsApp groups. So it's make sure that you look up, because if you're always looking down, you're staring at your boobs all day. So it's just something that can be funny. It can be inspiring. It can be a thinker. There's no prescription to what you can put in the buzzword of the week, quote of the week. And then we have riddle of the week. Riddle of the week is something that just tests our smarts. We normally have one clear winner, and that's normally Tony, and Tony has to sit on her hands when the riddle gets read out. And I allow the person who's put those together to read it out to us, because it's not just about me. And I think that's where leaders can sometimes get it wrong. It's not just about you. Your team has got you to where you are, and it's important to remember that, and it's important to give them a voice. So that's just another little section we have.
Stash, let me move away from the mechanics and the elements of your meetings and try and draw from your experience. What I wanted to know is, are there any common mistakes you think you've made or you've seen other teams make in a virtual context? And then what advice have you got to avoid those?
Being on mute. It's a classic, but if it happens, we all just laugh about it because it's just something that happens. I think not having cameras on, that for me, I want to see your face. I want to see your expressions. Because I'm not near you, I think that's also critical in terms of making sure the camera's on. But also just not just for virtual meetings, I think also listening is critical in a meeting. It's not because you're running the meeting that you've got to talk all the time. I think there is a space for listening. I mean, I am a chronic interrupter. It's my ADD side. So I do have this trick where I sit on my hands to just remind me to actually listen and not interrupt. And also, I think putting your virtual hand up. So, you have the emojis that you can use. Like if I'm giving kudos to a team member, then somebody who doesn't want to interrupt can put like a little celebration emoji, which is quite cool to know that that person's listening and that person's also contributing without interrupting. So that's quite cool. So and then when your virtual hand is up, I don't stop the meeting to address the virtual hand. I finish the train of thought, and then I go, okay, Tony, you have something to say about that. And then Tony steps into the conversation. So in terms of virtual, I think that's my advice, is use the virtual tools. You've got them, so why not?
So you guys do this meeting every week. And I think there are many people in the world who run meetings who think a meeting's successful because they got through it or they completed an agenda. What measurements do you have that help you evaluate whether this meeting was a good one or an average one or a poor one? Do you have any of those kinds of measures?
So I'm going to take it back a step. The way that I see my Monday meetups, if I know as a whole, the way that I know that they are successful is that I have full attendance almost every single week. People show up. I think for a weekly meeting, just them showing up shows that they actually want to be there. You know, I've never had anybody not show up for 4 weeks. Stuff happens, right? Kids get sick or their Wi-Fi goes down or, load shedding. Stuff happens. But if it's consistently happens, then we have a problem. That hasn't happened to me. My consultants want to be there. I've asked them ahead of this podcast with you, Barrie, like, do you actually want to be here? Do you find the meeting valuable? And I feel like I've fostered a culture of honesty and open communication that they could say to me, actually, this is a gigantic waste of time. That actually happened to me when I asked my lead designer to be in 2 meetings. They're 15-minute meetings, but she pushed back, and I respect her for it because she said to me, Tash, I don't feel like I need to be in those meetings every week. My time could be used elsewhere. And I was like, you're right. Fair enough. Perfect. So I do feel like they would have said, I don't actually want to be here. I don't want to attend the Monday meetup. So that, for me, shows me that Monday meetup is important. In terms of evaluating the effectiveness of the weekly meeting, when we finish on time and my team's energy is high and they leave feeling better than they maybe came into it, because it's Monday morning, let's be honest, it's not always the best space after a nice weekend. I can tell that the meeting was really, really effective.
So your meetings are intentionally short. You talked about that over and over. 30 minutes max. Now that you've got 8 Janes, you push it over by 2 minutes. How do you make sure, or how do you maintain a discipline around that time frame without feeling rushed, without sacrificing some of the important things that need to be discussed?
Firstly, I make sure that I read through the agenda before the meeting so that I'm also not flying blind and that my feedback is to the point.
So you're well prepped.
I'm well prepped. If I expect my consultants to be prepped, I expect myself to be prepped, or they expect me to be prepped. And it stops the waffle, oh, I didn't read this, or quickly I want to go back to something. I know what the answers are ahead of time so that it can flow. And it never feels rushed. It's the strangest thing. I mean, whenever I look at the clock, it's like 9:30 and we're done without me rushing, because each section of that is important and I give the time that it needs. If I feel like we're going off on a tangent, it is my responsibility to pull things back a little bit, respectfully, obviously. I don't ever tell anybody to keep quiet or, whatever. I can just see or hear when things are kind of going away from the point. And I think that's critical also, is to stick to the talking points, stick to the agenda.
Tash, a more practical question. What would you say are non-negotiables for someone running a meeting or even someone participating in a meeting, especially when it's virtual?
I think keep to the point. Try not to waffle. And I know this from myself because I do tend to waffle. So it's actually taught me to stay on point. Be crystal clear on the outcome of the meeting. Like, this is what we want to achieve. I think meetings, sometimes people just have meetings for meeting's sake, just because it's a tick box exercise. But meetings are actually valuable if they have a point to them. So they need to have a point, and you need to understand what that outcome is. And don't be the only one speaking. I think as leaders, we feel like we need to fill the space with noise and words. But sometimes ask a question and then let it hang and let someone else take the reins. I've been in meetings where people are talking and talking and talking just to hear themselves speak. And I'm like, what's the point? I could be creating something beautiful and I'm now stuck in a meeting. And then you can actually see people kind of drop off. You can actually, maybe not in a virtual setting, but you can see people now suddenly checking their phones, whatever. So get to the point, get there fast.
I think it takes a lot of courage for a leader or someone running a meeting to keep quiet and leave it to the participants instead of filling that space, because sometimes that space is important to allow people who just need another 5 seconds to process to come out. And if you fill that space, they don't come out and you potentially miss some valuable insights.
And it's tricky. It's really tricky to do that because nobody likes crickets, right? Makes people feel uncomfortable, especially me. I hate silence. If you've ever ridden in a car with me, you'd know. But I feel like really valuable insights come out of silence, and it's a skill that we should learn.
So let me circle back to the LinkedIn post where we started. You put that post out there. Did you have any interesting comments or insights that that people responded to? I mean, I know I responded, and here we are.
I was just about to say, this is one of the biggest responses I received. Funny enough, no, and I don't know why. I don't put content out there just to get a like and a comment. I think we are driven by those, and we almost see our value in engagement, but that doesn't mean people didn't see it and it didn't resonate. I think even if it was just for my team that saw it, because they knew I put it up, obviously. Even if it was just my team who saw, actually, Tash values my time, and the Monday meets up and the agenda is there for a reason. And even if it just did that, I mean, I'm happy with it.
Tash, I want to thank you for your time today, because I do think that we have not given a lot of thought to how we should run these new style of meetings. I think since COVID came and we all got forced onto Teams, Meetup and Zoom, etc., I don't know if we've thought it through, and you clearly, along with your team, have done a lot of thinking to make sure that you build a good agenda, you keep it short and sweet, you have a particular way of doing things, and you've created a culture and a space where your team feels like this is a worthy thing to go to. So thank you for today.
Thanks, Barry. It's been awesome chatting again and catching up. Before we end, I would like to just send a massive shout out to my team who I know are listening. We've been talking about this for a few weeks, and they've contributed heavily to this conversation and heavily to the Monday meetup. I mean, they have been incredible and passionate and talented, and this is our thing. J&O is our thing, and they're invested, and I just want to really, really thank them for that. I mean, that's something you can't teach. I value them, and I just wanted to say thank you.
There you have it, folks. The shocking truth that meetings don't have to suck. Who knew? Apparently, Natasha Nass did. Thanks to Tash for proving that with a little structure, a splash of accountability, and some well-timed yays and nays, even a bunch of remote creatives spread across farms can have meetings that don't feel like slow death via Zoom fatigue. The secret? A clear agenda, a hard stop at 30-32 minutes, and just enough fun to keep everyone from mutinying. Also, apparently a few goats. If your team is still trapped in meetings that feel like punishment for a crime you can't remember committing, maybe it's time to try the Jane Doe method. Keep it tight, keep it human, and please, for the love of bandwidth, stop pretending you need an hour. That's it from me. This has been The Meeting is Dead. Long live the meeting. Join us next time when someone else tries to convince me meetings are still worth having. Spoiler, Tash has set the bar annoyingly high. Stay snarky, stay structured. Until then, keep it short, keep it smart.